story says that David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. In other words, David found strength in the Lord his God. Right then, David couldn't do anything about the attitude of his men. Emotions were running too high. It wouldn't have made any sense to argue. Sometimes arguing does not do any good at all. You ever been in a situation like that? You trying to argue with somebody who ain't gonna listen to what you saying, and you keep on arguing, and both of y'all get mad. You keep on arguing, both of y'all end up saying something that you can't take back. You can't take it back once you said it. Don't make sense to argue sometimes. The situation was not lending itself well to reasoning. Level heads were not in the mix right now. So David looked to the Lord for strength. He looked toward heaven for encouragement. And that's what I stopped by here to tell you about this morning. Sometimes emotions will be running too high for calm minds to interact. Sometimes you won't be able to make sense out of what's going on, but you'll still need something to help you to make it through. You need something to get you through the darkness and the stormy situation. I just came to recommend you to the Lord. He has what you need. When you're lost, He provides direction. When you're confused, He gives solutions. When you're weak, He gives you strength. Strength that you might need just to hold on and to hold out. Yeah, strength to bear up under the pressure until relief comes your way. I'm about ready to take my seat now, but before I sit down, I'm reminded of some biblical characters who might help you to hold out while you're going through. I'm thinking about Daniel. You remember Daniel, don't you? Daniel was an exile down in Babylon. Daniel was away from his homeland, but he had not forgotten his God. While he was in Babylon, the story says that Daniel prayed 3 times every day, turned his face toward Jerusalem, and prayed to his God. In the process of things, Daniel was promoted while a captive in Babylon. He was promoted to a high position of honor. Some other folk who had not been promoted began hating on Daniel. Yeah, I can use the young folk language. They were hating on him. They were jealous of him. They started plotting against him. Some others began to get jealous of Daniel. They persuaded the king to decree that no one would petition any god or any man other than the Babylonian king for 30 days. And if anybody broke the rule, he'd be thrown into a den of lions. Daniel's problem was that he didn't conform to the rule. Every now and then, you've got to say goodbye to the rules of the culture. Now don't go out here and not use some good sense. But sometimes what the culture tells you ain't in line with what God tells you. Daniel continued to pray to his God 3 times every day. When he was discovered, he was arrested and thrown into the lion's den, faced with danger. There in the pit, Daniel faced the real threat of danger with those lions. You know, lions can kill you and then eat up the evidence. But he didn't give up on his God. Like David, he found strength in his God, even in the pit with the lions. When the king came to the den of lions the next morning, called out to Daniel, Daniel said, "Here I am, O king." Daniel was still alive. Sometimes you just have to hold out and hold on. But I also thought about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were Hebrew captives in Babylon also. The king of Babylon had caused a great statue of the Babylonian god to be erected. The decree was that when the music played, everybody was to bow down and worship the god. Anyone who didn't bow down was subject to be be thrown alive into a fiery furnace. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't conform. They were loyal to the God of Israel. They would not deny their God, even in the face of being thrown into a fiery furnace. Because of their nonconformity, they were arrested and thrown into the furnace. Because of their nonconformity, they had to suffer punishment. They experienced the destructive force of the fire. But like David, they found their strength in the Lord. They couldn't avoid being thrown into the fire, but they did discover that God, the real God, would meet them in the fire. You're not going to avoid all of the dangers of life. But go on in Jesus' name. And when you arrive at trouble's den, God will already be there. Then there was Paul. Paul was stoned at Lystra for preaching the gospel. So people who were afraid of the inroads that this gospel preacher was making into the established religious system influenced the crowd to stone him. They stoned Paul. Then they dragged him outside the city and left him there for dead. They thought he was dead, but he wasn't dead. In fact, he got up, went back into the city, made preparations to go to another city, went over to Derbe and evangelized. Then when he and his team had finished that, they went back to Lystra, strengthened the disciples there against the odds and the disruptions. Paul and the others found strength in the Lord. Then there was Jesus. Jesus was facing Calvary. Jesus had done nothing but good, but execution was staring him in the face. He had healed the sick, raised the dead, fed the hungry, exorcised demons from people, and gave hope to ostracized people. Yet a humiliating death was waiting for him. In a moment of passion, Jesus cried out to his Father and asked him to remove that bitter suffering and the death that was waiting for him. But then he found strength and said to his Father, "Not my will, but thy will be done." Every now and then, your road is going to get a little rough. Every now and then, your way will get dark and cloudy. Every now and then, you'll wonder why things are happening to you that should not be happening. You won't be able to come up with satisfactory answers. You won't find solutions under the nearest rock. Sometimes you won't know what to do. That's when you'll just have to encourage yourself. You'll find strength in the Lord. Don't start blaming other people, but encourage yourself in the Lord your God. Don't give up and quit, but find strength in the Lord. Don't let the devil fool you into thinking that God has abandoned you, but encourage yourself in the Lord. When you don't see any hope, when you feel all alone, when it's dark and you think the sun will never shine again, encourage yourself in the Lord your God. Just remember this: behind every dark cloud, there is a silver lining. You don't know when you might get to your silver lining, but just keep on going on. They killed your Lord, and my God, the sun stopped shining. The earth reeled and rocked. They buried him in a tomb. They put a stone and a guard in front of the tomb. And he looked like it was all over. Right there. On the third day, he was buried. Jesus got up out of the grave and ran all around. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't quit. Encourage.